Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back, guys. We are back with part 3 of the Notre Dame chapels, and Claudine's going to continue our tour around them.
So this is on the back side of the church that we're still in, which is where all the beautiful chapels are, that everything is painted and everything, like every, rib, every part of the ceiling, everything by Viollet-le-Duc, of course, in the 19th century. And I love these chapels back there because they are so pretty. And now we're going to get into some that have some beautiful stained glass. So the center one, a lot of times in the churches, if you go to Saint-Sulpice or Saint-Germain-des-Prés, the chapel that's in the back, that's straight behind the altar, is usually the Chapel of the Virgin, but this one is called the Notre Dame de Sept Douleurs, and it is the chapter house of the Order of the Lady of Seven Sorrows. And this is also where a very special relic is placed every Friday of Lent and the first Friday of each month, which we'll tell you about. And we've also done 2 extensive podcasts about it. But this order was created in the year 1099. It was headquartered in Rome to support the Christian presence in the Holy Land. It included 30,000 knights and dames, so they have some ladies in there, that protects the crown of thorns and are involved in the veneration. And so each time it is brought, the crown of thorns is brought out, these are the people involved in it. And while we were going through the time of when they were restoring Notre Dame after the fire, which is just 6 years ago tomorrow, they were all there on hand whenever the crown of thorns would come up at Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois, which is right by the Louvre. And they really do protect it, because one of the times when I went and I was like hiding in the corner, very discreetly trying to get a picture of it, they came after me and told me to leave.
They're not messing around, guys.
They're not messing around. And even though there was somebody there that had a massive, 1980s camera that, you're using to film a TV show. And I was like, hey, I had this thing practically in my pocket, but, it still wasn't okay, I guess. But what's also really beautiful in this chapel, there's many, many things, but on the left-hand side is a painted mural that's the life of the Virgin. If you haven't figured it out already, pretty much the whole church is mostly the life of the Virgin or the life of Christ. But this mural depicts her life, and it was done by Auguste Paradin in 1870, so under Viollet-le-Duc. And it has 6 panels, and it reads from the bottom to the top, just like stained glass window. On the bottom left is Jesus bearing the cross. In the center, he's on the cross, and the bottom right is descent of the cross. The middle is the death of the Virgin and the communion of the Virgin, and the top is the coronation of the Virgin. And it's really beautiful. It's a little bit different than the Viollet-le-Duc paintings because it was done, of course, by somebody else. But it is a really beautiful one. It's kind of hard to get to see the details of this chapel because it is where the crown of thorns is. And even when the crown of thorns is on display, this area in front of it is roped off, and there's pews in there if you want to go in there to pray, but they are pretty stringent on not letting you take any pictures. So this is another one of those, definitely go early in the morning when there's not a lot of people, and you could stand behind the rope and be able to kind of get some pictures and see inside a little bit. But it is one of those, do not go into the roped off area and try to take a picture, because they definitely frown upon that. And it is kept for just people that want to pray. There's wooden stalls in there that were done by Louis Marteau and Jean Nel, and they were designed after the architect Robert Decote. So those go back to 1710 under Louis the 14th, who Robert Decote is also the one that did the choir in the center where it was all done with the vow of Louis the 13th that we talked about. There's two cenotaphs in here, which again, if you haven't listened to the other ones, cenotaphs are kind of the grave markers, but the grave's not there. So it's kind of almost an effigy that this was built to mark this person that had passed away, but they're not buried in that chapel. Both are of the Gondi family, and the one on the left is Albert de Gondi. He was a Marshal of France in 1522 to 1602 is when he was alive. And that one is on the left, and he is on his knees praying. And then there's his uncle on the other side, who was a cardinal, Pierre Cardinal de Conde. He was Archbishop from 1569 to 1598. He was the brother of Albert, and he was the Bishop of Long in 1565, and then named the Bishop of Paris in 1598, who he was a protector of Catherine de Medici. Well, that had to be a job that really sucked. He retired in 1598 in favor of his nephew Henri. He was the chancellor and grand chaplain of Elizabeth d'Autriche, who was a daughter of Catherine. And he went on a mission to Rome under Henry III and Henry IV. So he was a pretty busy guy, but he's also one of the cardinals depicted in my favorite paintings by Rubens of Marie de Medici that are in the Louvre, because all things could be circled back to the Louvre.
We should always circle back to the Louvre. That should be one of our themes.
I know, I haven't actually mentioned Eugène Delacroix for a long time.
I know what's going on. I'm missing that guy.
Well, he's not in Notre Dame, so I'll find a reason to bring him back. But in the center of this is one of the new contemporary pieces, and like I've said, I was not a fan of any of the contemporary pieces when they unveiled them months and months and months before the reopening, but all of them have grown on me. And this one is actually really beautiful. So it's in the center. We talked about this when it reopened and about some of the new things in there. It is the reliquary for the shrine of the Holy Crown of Thorns. It was done by Sylvain Dubuisson. He's an architect and designer. And it was in 2005 that the cardinal at the time, Lucier, asked the artist and architect to create a new reliquary for the crown of thorns. The project died when the cardinal died, but he shelved his idea. But in 2023, the Bishop Ulrich, who's the current bishop, called out of the blue and asked him to pick it up where he left off. So he researched the history of the crown. So he and I should go hang out and have wine and talk about it. But he researched it from its origins to the reliquary church of Saint-Chapelle, and he decided, which was created and channeled Abbe Suger, who's a father of Gothic churches, who did the Basilique Saint-Denis. It includes 360 openings in the back of it. It's a gilded bronze like wall, and it has these openings. They're bigger at the top than the bottom, and inside each one is a representation of each thorn. So the thorns of the crown of thorns, and I'll put the link to the episodes we did about the crown, I think, gosh, well over a year ago. But when I originally thought about the crown of thorns many, many years ago, I pictured in my mind a rose bush, or, a rose, and how those thorns are. But that wasn't what these thorns are. These thorns were like 2-inch, like needles, basically. And they were all cut off when it was in Venice, when it was held there for collateral before Saint Louis bought it. But it was these big, huge, sharp needles. And so that is what he kind of put in the middle of all of them. It's kind of hard to see because you can't stand very close to it. But but the gold is also reminiscent of Byzantine churches where the crown of thorns was kept in the 5th century. It has 396 glass cabochons that circle around an open hole, which is where the crown of thorns is placed on the Fridays of Lent, and each etched with a cross, and it's backed in 24 karat gold. The Carrere marble base supposedly holds a safe where the crown lays when not displayed and is topped with 100 LED candles. And I say supposedly because the crown of thorns prior to the fire was kept in the floor. There was two keys. The keys were never separate or never together. They were always with two separate people. And the night of the fire, one of the gentlemen couldn't get to the cathedral just because it's, the traffic and everything was crazy. And when he finally did get there, the keys were given to the clergyman of the Pompiers of Paris, the fireman. And then he was, on a radio, they told him what to do and how to get the crown of thorns, which was deep in the floor. So the console that they supposedly is kept on looks like something you'd have behind your sofa and you'd keep blankets in. So I don't know if it looks like it is quite the security that the crown of thorns would need, since it used to be held in deep into the floor with two different combination locks and those keys were separated. So I don't know. I don't know if they'd actually tell us if that's where it actually was either. So I don't believe it.
Yeah, we're not buying that, guys.
I'm not buying that one. I was like, I don't know. But one thing I learned is what's really, I think, really cool is because of where this is placed, it is a straight line into the church. So when you walk into the church, the first thing you see is the new baptistry. Although they don't really baptize people in the church, but it is right there in the center as you walk in the door. And then you go from a straight line to that. It goes all the way to the very back of the church, which is on that altar. And the Viollet-le-Duc created is another new piece. It's it's basically symbolizes the host, because we talked about this is the holiest part of the church, and that is where the Eucharist altar is. And so every day when they do mass and they do for communion, they go back there to prepare it. So it's the holiest part of the church. And right behind that is the crown of thorns. And so it is like this access for faith in the believers, which I thought was actually really beautiful.
That is beautiful. That's lovely.
It's just lovely. But on the walls, you have some fantastic stained glass. And this is when we get into the really amazing stained glass of the church, where it's like, each window, kind of like how Saint-Chapelle, each window tells you the story of something in the way you read it. I'm going to do a whole one about the stained glass of Notre Dame. It's going to be another one of those projects. It's probably going to take me months because, of course, there's not one source at all that has every information about all of the stained glass. Which, when we're done with this, I'll probably have a 400-page book to publish. But the stained glass on the left is the pilgrimage to Notre Dame, done by Alfred Jarreté. It was done after Louis Steinel, and it was done in 1855. So that one is really beautiful. On the right side of this chapel, after you have the other Cenotaph of Gondi. On the right, this is the oldest painting in the building. It's a mural of the Virgin welcoming the soul of Simon de Bussy. And it is where his actual statue used to be underneath it, which has been moved. And we'll talk about that next week. But under there is two people. There's a virgin sitting there, but there is a gentleman that's there holding his head. But guess what? It is not Saint Denis, even though the plaque on the wall says it is. It's actually Saint Nicasse and Dorance, which is down in the Champagne region. He's holding his head because it was chopped off and he carried it to his tomb. So just like Saint Denis, he carried his head, but he went a much shorter distance than Saint Denis. But it was painted in the beginning of the 14th century. So it goes back to the early 1300s. And it was restored under Viollet-le-Duc, but he kept it there. So I love that Viollet-le-Duc didn't just get rid of everything. In the center, there's an altar there that has a statue of the Virgin Mary holding the crown of thorns. And so that's kind of right behind where the crown of thorns go. The crown of thorns, it is brought out, as I mentioned, on Fridays of Lent, which is going on right now. But normally that was what the rule was placed by Saint Louis. It was Fridays of Lent, Good Friday, most of the day on Good Friday, and then first Friday of the month. But since Notre Dame's reopened, since I think third week in December, it's been out every Friday from 3 to 5. They do the veneration at 3. and then they put it back into the chapel until 5 o'clock. And that goes, I've seen from either to Easter or to June. So if you're coming to Paris, but if you're coming to Paris and you're going to go into Notre Dame in the afternoon, like get there as early as you can and pack your patience because it's April and it's just going to get worse for the crowds.
Yeah,
So.
definitely pack your patience.
Yeah, definitely needs some patience. The next chapel next to that is Saint Georges de Lida. He was a martyred saint, lived in the year 280 to 303, so he didn't live to be very old. He died on April 23rd, 303, in the Roman Empire. There was a golden legend written by Jacques de Verigny in 1265 that tells his story. If anytime you see a saint um slaying a demon or a what looks like a dragon or something like that, it's usually going to be Saint Michel or Saint George. Saint George was on a white horse and he was crossing the river. The city had been terrorized by a dragon that was eating all the animals, as well as demanding two teenagers be given to him each day in a random draw. George arrived the day that the king's daughter, Celine, was chosen to be the teenager, one of the teenagers of the day. George found the dragon, drew his weapon. A battle ensued, and he was aided by Christ, and the dragon was killed just in time to save the fair princess. On the return to the village, the town converted to Christianity and were baptized because of Saint George and his harrowing slaying of a dragon. George was later arrested, tortured, his skin peeled, scalded, and quartered, but still survived.
How the heck did he survive that?
I don't know. There's so many stories. I mean, Saint Denis carrying his head for 5 kilometers is another, head scratcher. But days later, on April 23rd, is when he was beheaded. So that's his feast day today. So that's a lovely thing to think of. There's a statue right in front on the left side of Saint Georges, slaying the dragon by Joseph Lesconnet. He was a sculptor. It was done in 1855. And behind that, the stained glass, and this is, I think, my favorite chapel of the stained glass. The one on the left is the life of Saint Louis, the center of Saint Etienne, and the right of Saint Eustache. And the way you read stained glass, and this goes for any church, Saint Chapelle, any windows, is you start in the bottom left corner, you read left to right, then up, and then right to left, and then up, and then left to right, and continue to the very top. So that is how you read the stories of the stained glass. And we'll have way more information on that later. But these were done by Eugène Odino, after Louis Stenel, who was the glass painter. You might think, I know that name because Louis Stenel, his son, was married to Marguerite de Stenel, who was the one who might have actually killed the Felix Faurot, the president, by giving him a pleasure, we'll say.
I like that. A pleasure.
In the presidential Elysee Palace, and that was her father-in-law.
Only in France.
Only in France. Everything comes back. But there's also on the right a statue of the Monseigneur Georges Darboy. He was the Archbishop of Paris. He died. He was a martyr of the Commune of Paris. It was done by Jean-Marie Bonesseau. He was being shown blessing his murderers. He was killed in 1871 in the Rocket prison with the other priests. He was accused of being complacent with Napoleon III. There's also a plaque there that commemorates, the hostages of the Commune. It says May 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th of 1871. And there's also what is really cool. I don't know if this is going to be something that's going to stay there forever, or it's just something until we maybe have the museum created for Notre Dame, which right now is apparently they're trying to actually stop us from the creating over at the Hotel Dieu across the street. But on the left side, there's a crucifix that on the night of the fire was underneath in the choir. and the lead had dripped on it. So the lead that had come from the roof dripped on this, and it's just huge masses of lead. And then it's also there's a map on the back of it that has basically it was a map that the pompiers made about what they needed to do the night of the fire, of where they concentrated. And then there's a helmet of one of the helmets of the pompier. And then in the center is the rooster that Viollet-le-Duc created, that used to be on the spire, that fell that night. It crashed into the church, and then my love, Philippe Villeneuve, found the next morning and saved. But it is there, so you could see it. He's a little dented up, but it's there in the chapel. And then on the right, there's a bunch of pictures, kind of small black and white pictures of, all the different groups working on it, the stonemasons, carpenters, architects, and then also a little plaque that will probably be put up in the church someplace eventually, of the General Georges Alain, who was a general that was put in charge by the president a few months after the fire to be the person that worked between the government and the project. A very, very kind, sweet man. He just looked like a sweet little grandfather. And he died in August of 2023 while going on a hike in the south of France. So sadly, he did not get to see the entire church finished, which is kind of heartbreaking. But I always like to point out that everybody go look at that little picture, because he's just such a sweet man.
Aw, little sweet man in a tragic way.
Tragic way that he didn't get to see it finished.
Well, I mean, there's so much to see in these chapels. I feel like, we need you to take us around and just one by one because it's so much information. It's crazy. How do you
It
remember
is
all
a lot.
this?
Well, now because I've actually had to take a little break from Notre Dame, because I just was so in deep into it that I was like, I need a break of research of Notre Dame. But because I've researched it for so long, and written it and rewritten it and done it on YouTube, it's now just stuck in my head, including now a couple weeks ago we did the choir walls, which was the life of Christ. Now I could go into any church and I'm like, oh yeah, I know that story.
I got it all.
I got it. I got the life of Christ. Yeah, Pat now.
I still think you should be teaching Bible study.
I did say that to my friend, that it actually does teach Bible story. She laughed.
It's very possible. Well,
It's
guys, make sure you tune in next week as we continue around the chapels, and head over to ClaudineHemingway.com to learn more. Thanks for listening today, guys. If you're interested in learning more about Claudine, her tours, history, and the beautiful photographs that she posts all over Instagram, tune into her website, ClaudineHemingway.com.